Going live. I'm live. It says I'm live. That's awesome. Bills fans, what's up? Hopefully I catch some of you, but if not, I'm totally cool just recording this solo. And whoever needs to or wants to, nobody needs to watch me, but whoever wants to come watch can afterwards. Um, it's something I found really, really fascinating because it was brought up on a topic on a radio show in Buffalo, and it's something I'm fascinated by as a whole, not just with the Bills as a whole, is quarterback numbers, the history of quarterback numbers, all the way back into pre-merger. What's up, Eric? How you doing, bro? And I was just fascinated by these numbers, just the way it's evolved. The passing game as a whole in the NFL is just completely it's what it's about now. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but it's something you have to be good at, and it's something we know the Bills have not been great at, good at, average and below average to terrible at, mostly on the negatives ledger. But I was always fascinated by these numbers, and always looked at these numbers way before this topic. But anyway, it was posed on a local radio show in Buffalo about these numbers, about the about Josh Allen. It related to Josh Allen. What needs to be his floor? What does Josh Allen need to get to take that next step to be a quarterback, right, Eric, that we all want. And they were talking about how he needs to get to 20 minimum, like 20, 25 touchdowns or 25 touchdowns, I believe, and 3,500 yards, something to that effect. And, you know, for me, they were kind of throwing these numbers around like they were just And league wide, they are kind of eh. They're pretty average around the league if you think about it. But if you look at the Bills' history of passing, the lack thereof, they are not average at all. At all, they are. Oof. That means in Bills history, if you're throwing for 35 plus 100 yards and 25 touchdowns, that's amazing. In Bills history, not league history. And that is true where a lot of Bills fans, even me, we're not used to seeing good numbers coming out of a pass game. We're just not at all. We're not used to that. We're not used to, we all know what we're used to. Okay. And when they were just throwing around these numbers, I was like, look, in my head, when I listened, I couldn't call in right away because I was busy. But in my head, I'm saying, you realize the Bills have only had six. Hey, what's up, Damager? How are you, man? The Bills have only had six seasons in their history, 60-year history of 3,000 of 3,500 yards. Six seasons has a quarterback in Bills history thrown for 3,500 yards plus. Six. That's it. And the last one was with Fitz. With Fitz, when he had to just throw it all over the place in 2011. It is. It's like you can get these yards by accident. That's what I mean. You see pitch and catch. You see all these wide receivers running for fun all the time. And it's just like with the Bills to get just little things. And it was only in the second half of last season did we see. Well, the first half of 11 was fun. The second half was horrific when they went like 1-7. But their history has been terrible. And I'm talking back to when they started. I'm going back Jack Kemp. I'm going back to Dennis Shaw. That's how far back I went and looked. It's not hard, okay? And then you go into the Joe Ferguson years. And then you look at where the Bills traded a quarterback like Darryl LaMonica, who went on to lead the league in passing for like the AFL in passing for like in the AFC in passing for like 3 straight years, became the AFL MVP. It's crazy. They traded away. I mean, I think he would have the Bills' highest if you just kept his numbers as is. I know he did it with the Raiders, but if you just did that, he would have the most touchdowns in a Bills season passing with 34. And the reason I picked 28 seasons when I tweeted into WGR, I was just like, look, The last time a Bills quarterback eclipsed 25 touchdown passes was 33. That was with Jim Kelly in 91. 91. Not even quarterbacks they pass on in the draft. They just didn't take them, dude. This organization, I'm going to sound like a broken record. The organization under Ralph Wilson, ever since his passing, was a running back first organization. You can go back to Cookie Gilchrist, to OJ, Rob Riddick, Thurman Thomas. Then they would just draft him. Antoine Smith in the first round. No, he's not working out. We'll get Travis Henry in the second round. Oh, he's a crazy fuck off the field, a psychopath, whatever. We're going to bring in Willis McGahee. Oh, Willis McGahee's not working out. 2-3 years later, we're going to, Marshawn Lynch. Oh, we don't like Marshawn. It just, the vicious cycle, right? And that's the way this organization has been. And meanwhile, they would just kind of like hang out at quarterback, hang out literally and figuratively. We're just going to have this guy. He's going to hand the ball off. He's not going to turn the ball over, and we're going to win that way. And that doesn't work. But I looked at those numbers. I mean, it's terrible. Every other team has had a quarterback throw for 25 plus touchdowns in that same time frame. That's longer than most of you all been alive. So you guys have never seen the Bills have a good passing game. This organization's history has never had a good passing game. Really, they had a glimmer. What's up, bro? Of course, man. I always have cookie dough. I have cookie dough in the fridge as we speak. And you're lucky because the longer cookie dough sits, it tastes better because the flavors get a chance to marry. Always remember that. Patience will be rewarded. I wasn't so patient, obviously. But this team had one little sliver of glory years passing wise. 89. Wait, I believe it would be 2000. What am I saying? 90, 91, and the first 4 games of 92. If you want to go look at Jim Kelly's passing numbers after the first 4 games of 92 on a game log, they're like, what happened to him? He looked like he was going to be the league MVP, and then he just fell off a cliff. So two and a half years there, and then you had the 1 year of Bledsoe, the first half of Bledsoe, I should say, in 2002, where it was like all world. Their only 4,000-yard passer in franchise history, and then the rest of his tenure in Buffalo was terrible. He never eclipsed 3,000 yards, I believe. It was just woeful to watch. And then they traded away Fearless Price because they weren't going to re-sign him. They drafted Willis McGahee. He wasn't going to play. They brought in receivers like Bobby Shaw. They had Josh Reed, who was never really any good, but was overhyped, overvalued. So this team, whether it was quarterback and wide receiver, has just been crap. And hopefully now, I mean, you've got a young quarterback who in the last 6 to 5 games of the year, he really was really promising. Yeah, they were stuck in the past for a long time, bro. It's just the way of it. And the crap that we had to listen to as Bills fans. Well, you got to run the ball in Buffalo. You've got to be able to, and I get that, right? But the Patriots have treacherous weather and they throw it all over the place. Green Bay has cold weather, not the wind that Buffalo has, but they have some nasty cold weather. Okay, and catching that ball in the cold weather, that's a little hard. Now, I will say there was a trend that I noticed that teams that had domes, they tend to have better passing numbers. Teams in warm weather tend to have a little bit juicier numbers, but it all depends on the talent of the quarterback, obviously. Again, you got Green Bay, you've got Favre right into Rodgers. Boy, poor them, right? It's not like much like the Bills after Marino. Tannehill had some statistically nice years, but never much winning. Pennington had a nice year there. You go to the Jets, Testaverde's 98 year was really nice. Best year of his career. Next year, you had to go to find that was any good was Pennington's, I think, 2002 or three, something like that. I mean, then the next year after that, it was probably one of the second Sanchez year, but the Bills have been just as bad as those teams in that time, and that's saying something that they've been that bad. Well, they threw and ran when they wanted to. I remember that about those teams. They ran at more so than I think they should. Sometimes I felt like they had a weapon like Thurman Thomas. They used him a lot. They used Kenneth Davis. The rules obviously much different. The safeties, what they could do to receivers coming over the middle. That's all you'll hear. Bills fans will hear about how Andre Reed, Los will remind you about Reed going over the middle. It was such a big deal. It's like, man, you had to have balls to go over there because guys like Steve Atwater and safeties like that, Carnell Lake, all these guys were going to blast you. Lewis Oliver, remember him with the Dolphins, Los? They would hurt you. They could lay. You didn't have these defenseless receiver rules. You didn't have these contact rules that you had. You really had to do a mug job to get a pass interference call. The contact on receivers, quarterbacks, they had to worry about their knees getting hit. They couldn't step into their throws like these quarterbacks can now. They could get certain types of hits, that they can't receive now. I think I've said this many times. I remember Henry Thomas in '94. Jim Kelly tore his ACL, and it was the first year they didn't make the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl after the fourth straight. They were 7-9 to end it, and Henry Thomas crawled to dive at Jim Kelly's legs in his knees and tore his ACL. Like he literally just crawled and just jumped at it, tore his ACL. And Frank Reich came in the game, and they lost that Minnesota game, and they got blown out against the New England the next week. Oh, what do you know? So, yeah, yeah, Thurman was, but I wouldn't say he is, bro. Roger Craig, man, Roger Craig, damager. That guy was that guy was the original catching running back for the West Coast offense. I would tell you to go look up Roger Craig real quick, just so you could see what that guy did for the. I mean, and it was a West Coast offense. It wasn't what the Bills did. I mean, but I think he was the first thousand guy. Like he received 1,000 yards and ran for 1,000. So I don't think I think what maybe LaDainian did it. Yeah, he was the guy that started that, but he was definitely a great all around running back. Ricky Waters, I mean anybody in the West Coast system, but with quarterbacks that the Bills have they just either didn't draft, didn't care enough to draft, or just were hanging out with a guy. And when WGR was talking about these numbers about 20, 25 touchdowns and 3,500 yards, I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, but just kind of realize where the Bills have been organizationally, that those numbers are like wow numbers for the Bills organizationally. Like if you told me Josh Allen, like before that topic, right? Before they raised that topic, if you told me Josh Allen was going to throw for 3,550 yards and he threw 25 touchdowns and say 11 interceptions, I'd be like, okay. Because that to me, those are better numbers. And let's just say you throw in 6 rushing touchdowns. Those are better numbers than any Bills quarterback has had since Jim Kelly in '91 combined. But league-wise, that's not good enough. Marshall Faulk came after, of course. He came. He was phenomenal, especially in that Rams offense, the greatest show on turf offense. He was sick. That him and I think because of Thurman's knee injury in college, he never was the athlete he could have been in the NFL. But man, he was really good. He was really good. It's frustrating now to see how Bills fans see this guy, but LaShawn McCoy is the most talented running back I've ever seen in a Bills uniform, opposite Thurman Thomas. He's the most physically talented that I've ever seen. I'll bet you he did, especially when it's crazy that he drafted him with the well, he didn't draft him with the Colts, but he traded him, and then they drafted Edgerrin James. But then he goes to St. Louis and does what he does. Or St. Louis, they had just traded Jerome Bettis to draft Lawrence Phillips, and that didn't work out great for anybody. I mean, it worked out great for the Steelers and Jerome Bettis, but as for St. Louis at the time, it really hurt them. But I would ask you guys, go look at these numbers with the Bills, their passing game history, and it's just terrible. I mean, from a quarterback standpoint, I mean, sans some of the Kelly years, and Kelly, again, I'll tell you, he was physically beat up when he came into the NFL. He had already torn labrum, torn rotator cuff. I believe he had a metal rod in his shoulder. He had a bunch of stuff, and I know he hurt his knee a little bit in the USFL. Came to the Bills as a 26-year-old, so it's not like the Bills had him from the ground up. He didn't come in an unscathed prospect from the University of Miami. So I really hope that this kid, Josh Allen, he'll be the first. If he is, hopefully what we all hope him to be, he will be the first guy from day one to hopefully 15 years from now be the guy. It'll be the first, and you all will get to see it, as hopefully I will. Hopefully then I'll be in my mid-50s and still ticking and still enjoying it and doing these videos with my old ass. But hopefully only 3 seasons of 3,800 plus yards, 1 season of 30 plus touchdowns. The next best season is 26, and only 2 seasons of 25 plus touchdowns. So they've only had 4 seasons of 25 plus touchdowns in 60 years. Ugh. That's crazy. That is by accident. You should be able to produce better numbers. And some of those were Joe Ferguson. 2 of them were Joe Ferguson. Joe Ferguson in '83 and Joe Ferguson in '75. And in '75 he was playing with O.J. Simpson. So everybody was stacked in the line of scrimmage. I mean, yikes. That is terrible. So they really got to change that. I mean, they've got to get with the times when it comes to the passing game. And I know statistics I think are sexy. I think they're fun to look at. I'm not a fantasy football buff. I don't play it. I don't believe that stats always win. But if you look at the history of teams that have sustained success, maybe they missed the playoffs a few years and they go back in. The Saints have done that. They've missed the playoffs. I think they had three straight seasons of 7-9, and then they've had 2 or 3 seasons of winning football. But their passing game is always amazing, always. The Chargers, their passing game is always amazing. The Steelers, and I know they have great quarterbacks, but obviously you need a great quarterback, but you need the weapons too. You need to invest in that and in wide receiver. I was kind of glad the Bills didn't draft a wide receiver in the first few rounds this year, because there really wasn't a guy that was like, oh man, this is a must get. This is a must get. Even last year, this is a must get. This is a must get. And it's just kind of one of those positions I feel is turning into running back. The way the rules are in the NFL, the way that you don't really have to worry about certain contact and certain types of things. You can get guys that can give you production, and then you don't have to pay them top dollar. You can kind of recycle them in and out if your quarterback's good enough to make them better. Because we've seen that so many times where quarterbacks, fluffed up wide receiver numbers, they go on to get that big payday somewhere else, but nothing ever comes of it. I remember David Givens with Tom Brady. He had a big year, had a good Super Bowl game, good big playoff run with them. really was Tom Brady's number one target, David Givens. Went to Tennessee on a money deal. I think he got hurt, but really never nothing after that. Tons of guys we've seen. Mike Wallace, what much has he done since he's left Ben? Really, guys like Antoine Randall, all these guys. Um, he almost fell to the third, man. I'm not saying I know something, or I always kind of defer to the league and the people that do know. There's something about him. I think he was more of a media manifestation than anything. He looked the part more than anything. There was an idea of what and a vision of what everybody wanted for him, but he was never. I don't think that he'll. I think he is what he's going to be with Seattle. He's a guy that's going to be able to break open deep because of his physical gifts, and mostly because a result of Russell Wilson buying time and scrambling and just heaving it up. That's where he's going to make his hay, but he's never going to be the precise route runner. And he's got injury. He's got a lot of injury history. There was guys at Ole Miss that were just more productive than him. DeMarcus Lodge, AJ Brown. There was just guys that were better, yet this guy had more height, more physical attributes, but those guys put up better numbers. So, yeah. But again, it's not a very glorified passing game history with the Bills. And I don't like hearing about the weather. I don't like hearing about all these things because I just think it was an organizational philosophy that you didn't really win with quarterback and pass. You were valued. Lied was in the running back. The quarterback was just there to kind of run the show, hand the ball off, not turn the ball over, make an occasional play. That's not the way it works anymore. You really need a guy that can scare the life out of another team. And until that guy comes along, we wake up every Sunday feeling like we have a chance to win. And other teams' fans, you talk to other teams' fans and they're a little nervous about playing the Bills. I'll promise you, Bills fans, you'll know that the quarterback is here. And I'm encouraged because I talked to a guy who was really, really not a Josh Allen fan at all. He was not a Josh Allen fan at all. He really, I feel like screenshotting the conversation and showing you because he's just not a nobody. And I'm not trying to talk myself up. He did not like Josh Allen pre-draft. I didn't either. And I remember after the Miami game, he said, I asked him how did he feel, even though the game was an L. He said the Bills have found their quarterback. He's like, he's the guy. He's like, I'll just say this. You should have saw him in the locker room. And I'll just leave it right there. He was like, as a competitor and as a physical talent, I don't think the Bills have ever had a quarterback like this outside of Kelly in terms of competitor. This kid's a better physical talent than Kelly because, like I said, Kelly came into the league beat up. This Kelly was never the runner. This kid was. So let me not confuse that. But in terms of competitor, wants to win, can galvanize, rally, lead, he said, I think the Bills have found their guy. I think he's the guy. And he was a huge Josh Rosen guy. I'll just put it to you that way. He liked Josh Rosen, this particular person. But there's gonna be negativity, man. Until the guy is good. As a Bills fan, bro, you just got to learn to live with it. There's always going to be cynicism. There's always going to be, snark. It's just the way of it until the team consistently wins just because they're the Bills. That's the way it's going to be. It's like basketball, man. Look at if you're not 5 or 6 teams, you don't get any free agents. If you're not the Lakers, if you're not a team in LA, now there's 2 teams in New York. I mean, it just goes to show you how horrible a Knicks organization is to not draw any big-time free agents. They can go to Brooklyn now, right? If you're not a certain – you don't get these free agents. If I'm an Orlando fan, you're not getting Kyrie. You're not getting Kawhi Leonard. You're not getting Kevin Durant. Yeah, Orlando, you're not getting LeBron James. Occasionally they do want to go to Miami. That maybe in certain cases they'd go to Dallas. There was some plays just woven into the season. I just saw just a competitiveness that I liked. That it just didn't. It's kind of different when you see it in your team's uniform, when you're emotionally invested into it. It's different when you're watching tape of these guys in college. You're watching the Wyoming, the UCLA, the Oklahoma. We have no vested emotion in those things, but when you see him doing it in a Bills uniform, it's a lot more intimate. There's a lot more of a connection there. So maybe it's us being fans, which I think some of it is, but it's also like, wow, this guy is a lot more competitive. There is a lot more fire and a lot more juice there than I originally thought. So that to me is important. But I hate to keep going back to the numbers, but the history of this team in the air has to change. I mean, they have to 3,500 yards should be like that. They're just that's normal. That's normal. They're gonna. Well, it's easy to trash the Bills. It's easy. It's like the national media loves to trash the Knicks, even though the Knicks play in a big market, a big market. You know, a throw that I like in the season in the end zone. I believe it was a third down. He gets flushed out of the pocket. Zay Jones on the sideline, and it was a fucking rope. That thing was 20 plus yards in the air on a line. His touchdown to Zay later on over the middle, or it was earlier in the game. Zay was crossing the middle, stood tall in the pocket, and just tethered it. It was three defenders, and Zay kind of ran into the end zone. The touch pass he threw to Kroom, the touch pass he threw to Kroom in the Detroit game, just put it right over, I believe, his safety's head. Kroom went up and got it. Another reason I like Kroom, I'm a fan of his. I believe he can make this roster and do some good things. I really do. And yeah, that was the Bills play of the year. The throw in Jacksonville. I mean, my God, that's a throw. It's just like that's what your eyes were. It's like, holy shit, you guys have never seen a Bills quarterback make that throw ever. I mean, maybe I haven't. Maybe I haven't. I know Flutie made some crazy ass throws. But that one was holy shit throw. That was a big time. But again, you got to think of it from a standpoint of, okay, Josh, 3,500 yards, that's nothing. He's going to get that. He's going to get 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns. He's going to get 30 combined, rushing and throwing. That's nothing. So that's the time we're going to feel good about it. We're going to feel good about it. And again, I've never seen Bills players, I mind you, veterans, mostly veterans, vested senior players like Kyle, guys that maybe come in and just Bills have really taken and honed as their own leaders, like Lorenzo, like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, um, and you hear Eric Wood. They're like, man, this kid is legit. Like that's the special quarterback. I remember Poyer was saying that about they were talking about Darnold and Allen, and he's like, well, I saw one special quarterback on the field, and it was ours, even though they lost the game. So I mean, when you look at the physical tools and skill set, and I know I've said this before, I always sound like a broken record. I saw them all in the same field. I saw Baker, I saw Allen, I saw Tyrod. And if you didn't know who they were, and you just saw them play. You didn't know anything about their history. You knew nothing about their history. And you just saw them play and throw after that game. And they were like, go pick your quarterback out of these guys. Peterman was on the field too. But, come on. You would have walked up. You would have walked. And McCarron started that game, by the way. And he was terrible. He was terrible. You would have been like, Allen, give me that guy. The big guy with the howitzer. Him. I believe he can make all the throws, even with his legs. I just don't want. I just want the offensive line to keep a running game going so he doesn't always have to. Like, he's in better passing situations. So instead of the 3rd and 8s, he's looking at 3rd and 3s where he can just kind of scramble and get a cheat. You know, he can get first down with his legs easy, but a 3rd and 3 with him, that's like, is he gonna? I mean, the defense is really going to be stressed because now they have Beasley. Now they have, they know how good Foster is, and then they have John Brown on the opposite end, so they can really. What's up, Trevor? They can really say, "Hey, we're fight or flight here. We back up. This kid could just basically take 2 steps and get a first down." But the offensive line for me is about getting movement and traction in the run game to allow him in the passing game to have more leeway. That's what it is for me. And just the stupid penalties, the pre-snap stuff, the holding stuff, that stuff has to be cleaned up because that stuff really, really hurt them. You know what I mean? You make a good play and you get a holding call and it's negated. You 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 make maybe finally a good run, you get a hold, you make a good play, you gain like 7 yards, and somebody jumps off sides, and there's 5 yards right back. So I think and you know what is hilarious? I don't know if you guys watch or read about this guy. What an idiot this Kai Fahey is. I'll say his name. I know a lot of the guys in WGR won't say it because he's kind of a honk. He is a honk, and he's like psycho or something, and he's some shanty Irish prick from over in Ireland that seems to think he's some ascending opinion or some vanguard about NFL football, whatever. Meanwhile, if you try to talk about soccer, which I have, and if you know me, you know I love soccer and I talk a lot about it, I snap a lot about it, and I put a lot of Instagram stories about it, they'll tell you, Yankee, mind your fucking business. That's what they'll tell you. I swear to God, Euros will tell you that shit. Like, UK people will tell you, Yank, stick to what you know. Don't talk about our game. They'll tell you that dead ass. Seriously. I'm just saying. But if I was to say that shit on Twitter or something like that, I'd be called a racist and all kinds of other bullshit. But that's not the point. This guy's psycho. He was talking about how he tweeted how Robert Foster is really, really good, but the Bills signed John Brown and Beasley, and so somebody should trade for him. I'm like, what? So the Bills are the village idiots. They're going to trade a guy who's basically on an undrafted free agent contract, who was their best wide receiver the whole second half of the year, but they're going to trade him because you're smart and they're stupid. What a fucking douche. That guy is such a douchebag. He's such a cornball. He had I think he had Lamar Jackson as ascending young starter. I'm like, did you watch that guy when he had to pass the ball? He looked worse than Tyrod Taylor. And I know he's a rookie and all, but he looked worse than Tyrod Taylor. When the Chargers got a chance to go back to face him again, go into Baltimore and have a game plan for him, he didn't know what to do. And I'm not saying he can't get better, because hopefully he does, because the league needs good young quarterbacks. Oh yeah, Mariota's horrific. Another guy who gets a lot of hype. I'll talk a lot about quarterbacks here. You know a guy who gets a lot of hype? And that's another thing that we do a lot of. Allen's going to suck just because we have to say that, because that's what we said when he was coming out. This guy's going to be great. Baker has a great first year. Now all of a sudden Baker is great. Baker's sign still delivered. One-way ticket to Canton. Dude, he's still got, a whole career to play. He's in Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't have a big resume of winning. He's got a rookie head coach who's never been above an offensive coordinator before in his life. He's got a bunch of massive personalities and egos around him now, aside from his own, which is big. He has rabbit ears. He tweets. He replies to everything and everyone. So I think they need to be careful. But when the Bills played Houston, I don't know about you guys, I saw nothing scary about Deshaun Watson at all. I was not in fear Dude, same as here, man. I'm the same everywhere. I'm vicious 155 everywhere. I'm vicious 155 everywhere. Vicious 155. So I was not scared of Deshaun Watson at all. I felt like he held on to the ball a lot. He got sacked. He's very, I don't know. There was nothing about him that I saw that was like, oh wow, scary. Like, here's this quarterback that's making me shit myself. The same thing with Marcus Mariota when the Bills, he came and played the Bills. I was just like, this guy is just, no, he's not that good. He's just not. Another guy I saw that was just like people wax poetic about, and I remember watching him, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, he's really just blah to me. Blah. I remember I felt it was, and it's funny because he was putting up great numbers, and he got hurt. Was Trubisky. Trubisky was just like, he just looks, he looks like he's okay. He's not great, but I don't see a big time arm. I see okay movement. And then Goff, to me, Goff was the ultimate guy who got really, really, I won't say he got exposed, but I think that head coach has to dress a lot of things up to make him good. Because I just saw a guy in the big pressure moment. I feel the same way, Trevor, about Goff. I feel like whatever McVay dials up for him, it must be fucking gold when it works, man, because I've never seen a quarterback unravel like that. And he wasn't that good in the preceding weeks either in the playoffs. It just goes to show how heavy reliant he was on Gurley's presence. And I don't want a quarterback like that. I don't want a quarterback like that. I want a quarterback. Now, don't get me wrong, system QBs, Brady has a great system around him, but he can win independent of that system. Like, he doesn't need a great running back behind him. He doesn't. Everybody needed, in the Rams case, they needed Goff to have Gurley behind him. Maybe in the early years when Brady needed to, grow into himself, and Goff is still there too. He had Corey Dillon. Yeah, Andrew Luck is really he's a very talented quarterback. He's one of those guys. I've never been to a game in Buffalo, dude. Never. I have to go. Yeah, he has a hell of a receiving core, and I think he got a little better too. But the Bills need some stacked receiving cores for a change. Well, they had one with Tyrod Taylor, and it never. You know what's crazy about that receiving core? That it was Robert Woods who was ultimately the best out of all those guys. It was Robert Woods who was the best out of all those guys. And I know he's with that Rams team we just talked about, but I feel like Robert Woods he was so undervalued. As he's a guy I would have loved to have seen the Bills keep, but they didn't have the money, and he wanted to go home. Oh, I'm in Jersey, bro. I'm in North New Jersey, and you drive all the way from Long Island. That's a trek. Long Island, man. Whew. That is when they say Long Island, you could be driving for. It seems like forever because it is long. It is like long. Yeah, I mean, but he wanted to go home and he wanted money the Bills didn't have. So, yeah, another quarterback puts up big numbers sometimes, just doesn't scare me. So sometimes big numbers they're just sexy. They're fun. Don't get me wrong. Matthew Stafford. I mean, the Bills have beaten Matthew Stafford with Kyle Orton, now again with, Josh Allen, and we hope to be the guy. Matthew Stafford just does not scare me. He really doesn't. He puts no fear into my heart whatsoever. Yep. Blake Bortles fantasy, he's okay. Like, he's okay. I need better than okay to win Super Bowls, man. There's so few elite quarterbacks out there that are just a cut above the rest. I think Russell Wilson is just a cut above the rest. Ben Roethlisberger. You know who to me puts up great numbers, wins. Occasionally he'll have that down year, but in the playoffs he is just not the same caliber of quarterback. He just isn't. Philip Rivers. He does kill the Bills. I will give him that. He does. He kills the Bills, but when he gets into the playoffs, he looks like a guy who just is doesn't have it. Like he just doesn't have that step. Now, I remember there was quarterbacks before maybe some of your guys' time that wow, they were good, but when they got into the playoffs, man, they were fucking amazing. Kurt Warner, you guys remember him, of course. You know who wasn't as good in the playoffs? Dan Marino. Dan Marino was not as good in the playoffs as he was in the regular season. Kelly had some really good starts in the playoffs, but as a whole body of work, he had some real bad games in the playoffs. I know, unfortunately, in a few of the Super Bowls, he had some real awful games. But it's just, and you know what I don't like though? The Chargers every year they seem to get the pass of, oh, they're ready to go to the Super Bowl. They Drew Brees. I'm sorry, Drew Brees. In my mind, I'm going back in history. With so many different quarterbacks. Philip Rivers hasn't taken them there, and he's had tons of great receivers, great running backs, players on defense. They haven't gotten there yet. He's 38 years old. Okay, he's 38 years old. I think it would have happened by now. I really, really fucking do. Okay, if you're sitting there and you're saying, "Oh, we got this 38-year-old quarterback. He's gonna take us." I mean, like, yeah, he puts up great stats, but he's never. I mean, at least with Drew Brees, even though he's older, he's gotten there, and he's done that. When's the last time Rivers got to an AFC Championship game? But they get a pass every year as a guy. Yeah, Dak lost me last year, man. I used to be a defender of him to Dallas fans, but it was in that Colts game after they got fat and happy off that win against the Eagles where they got their pants pulled down. I was like, okay, this dude, I'm done with him. He definitely needs Zeke behind him running full bore to do anything. Well, they have, dude. They have the machine. They have the machines. They have the media. You have the Dallas has a cult following. Wait till the Raiders. Okay, you want to hear about overhype? Wait till the Raiders wait till the Raiders go to Vegas. Wait till they're the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Because Eli's a better quarterback in the playoffs. Eli's a better quarterback in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. If you get that man into the playoffs, he's better than Peyton. Sorry, I don't want him as my 16-game starter, but if you had to tell me to choose between the two Mannings, I'm taking Eli in the playoffs in a heartbeat because he's better. He's more clutch. Now, there's not a lot of great quarterbacks. I mean, a lot of the rules, and there's a lot of fluffed up numbers, of course, but there's some of those numbers, man, are tried and true, and they're fun. I'm not going to lie. They're fun to watch. I want to have fun as a football fan, and the Bills' passing game history has been boring as fuck. I mean, it's fun to see a running back do his thing, but shit, I want to see some big plays in the pass game. I want to see somebody mossing people, catching over their fucking head. I want to see Dawson Knox running down the seam, burning one of the Patriots' fucking safeties right down the middle, gets over the top of the linebacker, fucking safety just gets ball caught right on his helmet, touchdown. I want to see that. Come on. Yeah, John Elway got his pants pulled down, but he also, dude, he was a one-man band in the first half of his career. That man had nobody, and he just won shit. But he eventually got his Super Bowls, And I remember when he finally got Shannon Sharp, and he had some big games against the Raiders, even though the Raiders, I believe, won both those games. They were great. They were fun to watch against Hostetler. They threw for a whole shit ton of yards in those 2 weeks, 3 weeks span. But he was as physically gifted a quarterback as I've ever seen in my life, with arm and running around. I mean, similar to Allen in terms of arm and running around. It was wow. And if you look at the completion numbers, the completion percentage back then, like if Josh Allen would have had the completion percentage that he had last year, back then nobody would have said a word about it. You'd seen quarterbacks throwing for 49% in their rookie year, 50%, and that wasn't a big deal. You saw maybe in year 5 and 6 they were up in the 60s because it took time. Totally different era, totally different. Like it was shot place, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We're gonna fucking heave the ball 15, 20 yards downfield. We weren't going to do all these little rub routes and these little things, and those work. Don't get me wrong, but the rules help those. Oh, that's going to be interesting. When does that start, by the way? Because we're already in July. I really hope I know when that starts. I think Allen has a better arm than Wentz, and he's a better runner. But Wentz is a more refined quarterback in terms of his footwork and his drops and stuff. Coached by the same guys. Same coaching staff that went to Wyoming after North Dakota State was so it was not a shock whatsoever. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, if he gets injured this year, he's really going to get the injury prone label. He really, really is. Well, their city is it's very hard to build. It's very hard to build a stadium in that city because of earthquake zoning and all different types of permits you get to need to blow shit up to quarry out. It's very, very hard to build a stadium in California, but particularly in Northern California because of all the different, the wildfires they have. There's all different types of insurance. It is a completely different animal building a stadium in California than it is anywhere else just because of those dynamics. And the NFL doesn't talk about those because they're not sexy to talk about because they're real. They're real, but they're not sexy. Oh yeah, 51-3. That was fun. Imagine sitting there at halftime knowing your team's going to the Super Bowl. Fuck that. You knew it before halftime. Yeah, it feels good. Okay. I'll feel good when preseason's over and nobody's injured, particularly him. Yeah, but they're getting an arena though. It's different than a stadium. The weight capacity is different. The types of when you build, you need a rebar, and then you need thin set strength on top of that for all the weight. So that it's just construction and engineering wise, it's hard to build something like that out there. Not hard. It's just hard to get all the permits and all the stuff in motion. It requires a lot of bullshit. They've been trying for over 30 years and they never got it done. Look at San Diego. Never got it done. Yeah. All they have left is the A's. Yeah. They do. What's up, Corey? It's been a long time. They do make. I was talking about how that was the topic, is how horrible it's been. It's been terrible. It's, I don't know, Trevor, you've been tortured by your friend. I mean, it is torture from the passing game standpoint. It's horrific. It's horrific. I mean, and that was just, and trust me, most of those 4,000 yards came in the first half of that year. The second half of that year was not good. The defense was really shit. The offense got figured out. I remember Travis Henry was fumbling all over the place. But prior to that, that's why I keep going back to when WGR was throwing out these numbers. I was just like, Jesus Christ. For the Bills to even come close to that would be like, oh wow, those are organizationally amazing numbers. Like, you don't realize how great those numbers would be in a Bills setting. Yeah, Fitz's high was 30 over 3,800, and that was in 11 when he was just, he was throwing all those short passes. Those were little dink and dunk passes. It took him almost 600 attempts to get to that. I think it was like 350 some completions. That's terrible. I've seen guys with 350 completions have like 4,500, 600 yards. Well, they just haven't had talent at quarterback. They haven't had talent at quarterback. Now, Woods and Hogan, I could say, but when you have Watkins, who's been traded away by a team, I mean, Rams let him go after 1 year. And if you're looking at that KC contract now, that looks bad. The guy just has not been good. The guy has just not been good. He never lived up to the hype. Naaman Roosevelt was a jag. He was just a guy. They was injured. There were a lot of injuries in that year when he came in 2010, I remember. I think Lee Evans might have gotten hurt and they signed Naaman, but Lee was already on his way out. I think they had just gotten a hold of Nelson that year too. Donald Jones. He had his little bit of time, but he had that really bad sickness. He could never stay on the field. Remember Ruvell Martin? That was always a fun name. Ruvell Martin, Justin Jenkins. Justin Jenkins could stay there forever. Sam Aiken before he went to the Patriots. He was a really good special teamer. That's why Bill Belichick wanted him. He was a really, really good special teamer. Yeah, David Nelson had that nice little run. Then he tore his ACL and he kind of just quit football. He was traded I believe in the 11 into 10 off, the 10 into 11 off season. He ended up going to Baltimore, remember, and dropping that touchdown. Yep. Marcus Easley, again, the proverbial special teamer. There was just, again, they haven't had, I said that earlier in the video, that they haven't had great talent at wide receiver. They haven't had high-end talent at wide receiver at all, but at quarterback, it's been terrible. And quarterback can fluff up wide receivers. They can make wide receivers look really, really good. Yeah, still technically just 10 to 11. He got traded. It was what did he get traded for? Like a third round pick? They got a third round pick for Lee. I don't know what they did with it though. Let me see Lee Evans trade. I just remember like I was a little upset, but I wasn't that upset because Stevie just came off his big year and he had already, he kind of took over the number one job. So, he got a 4th round pick for him. Yep, August of 11. So the 11th season hadn't quite started yet. So his last season was 10, and then he didn't play the 11th season. So I thought it was a third. You know who they could have got a third for? John McCargo. They traded John McCargo to the Colts for a 3rd round pick, but then McCargo failed the physical and they had to take him back. Imagine that. Nah, the Lynch trade is one of the worst trades in Bill's history. Only problem is he never wanted to be in Buffalo in the first place. So I think when the organization was not stupid. Oh, there's other organizations that have had some shitty picks. Go look at Arizona's drafting history in the last. Go look at Arizona's draft history since 2012. And Steve Keim still has a fucking job. They let that man use first-round picks on quarterback in the same year after trading up for Rosen. So 2 years prior, they let him use the first overall pick on Murray, and they let him trade up for Rosen. Imagine that. Go look at their drafts in the last. Yeah, ooh, they are brutal. They are brutal, and I know they're Arizona, but still. Even the Jets have not had a great history, and they've been drafting in the top 10. The Browns, oh my God. Whitner, okay, but not a top 10 pick. Whitner, top 10 pick. Oh my God. The guy I wanted that year was Haloti Ngata. And I know we're going down the history. I think they got him for a 7th, actually, dude. Which was, and I think a lot of it was Bruce Arians is great with quarterbacks. I'm kind of interested to see what he'll do with Jameis Winston. I'm really curious because if that man can't, fix him, then he's done. He's done. Wow. They swap picks. It was a, let me see. Traded him for blah 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 conditional picks. It might have been the pick might have ended up being a 6, but that's nothing. That's nothing. That's a song. Do I think the Bills trade him? I want them to, but I don't know if they're gonna. I think they're gonna just try to see who the hot hand is. I think that's how they're gonna be at running back. I think they're gonna trade the hot hand. They're gonna just whoever. If it's Devin Singletary, they're gonna ride him. If it's Gore, they're gonna ride him. If it happens to be McCoy, they're gonna ride him. Maybe the Bills. Here's a great scenario. How about this scenario? I don't know if they would do this though. I don't know if they would do this. Imagine the Bills are winning. Halfway point, trade deadline. The Bills are, let's just say they're 6-2. And Shady's going good. But a team comes and gives them a third round pick. I don't know if they take it, but I would take it. I would. Hell, maybe in camp, who knows? Melvin Gordon is going to hold out. Maybe Zeke holds out. Who knows? I mean, they got a lot of moving parts, man. I hope maybe if Shady has a big year, he has a big year. It doesn't matter to me. I just hope whoever they have back there working 2-3 backs are running good, better than last year. It can't get any worse than last year, man. And I know this is about the passing game, and they don't need that to take a step. They need a fucking quantum leap. They need to jump across the Hudson River from where I'm at, which is about 1.5 miles away. Okay. He had 2 good years. The 15 was the best year. No, I want to say 16 was his best year. 15 was a solid year. 17, he had a lot more volume. Wasn't that great, but he had some bigger games. But the offensive line this year was definitely the worst it's been in, I want to say, when's the last time I've seen an offensive line with the Bills be this bad? I think the 2009 offensive line was pretty bad. 2008 offensive line was pretty bad. Even with Woods' rookie year, he got his leg broke. Levitri was a rookie. Carlos couldn't stay healthy. I think he broke a bone in his shoulder. Then he hurt his rib, and then he was out. Like, it's unfortunate because I feel like that guy could have been special. I really liked him. I felt like he was a good receiver too. Caught that nice touchdown against the Jets. The guy was such a talent. This is such a shame he threw it away. It really is. And that's not the Bills' fault. I think they end up releasing him at some point. There's just certain guys I think they're probably just going to release or maybe even look to trade. And I put it out on Twitter. I mean, you look at the Bengals. The Bengals are a team that needs offensive linemen. And if the Bengals come at some point and want a couple of depth linemen for some conditional picks, they're the guys that lost out on jobs anyway. That's a big worry for me too. That's a lot of moving parts, man. And I hope they can get it together. Mansfield Rado, that was a good one. Remember Cornell Green? They had him come in. He barely started. Demetrius Bell at left tackle. That was not good. I know Levitri was at left guard. Wood was at center. They had just – remember Jeff Handgartner? Wasn't he one and done with them? He was just like one and done. They picked up Eric Pears later that year too on a was not that good. He was really not that good. I remember against the Jets, or I'm sorry, not the Jets. I think he got beat. I think he's the left tackle that got beat. I want to say he's the left tackle that got beat by Aaron Maben for 2 sacks, for Christ's sake. I want to say he was the best. No, he was in '09. He was. I'm thinking of him being a one and done. I think he was just a 1 year and done with the Bills. Jeff Hangartner. But for him to get beat by fucking Aaron Maben for two, that was tough. Remember Aaron Maben did like a dance. Rex obviously was the coach. Yeah, he was with the Bills for a year. Because I remember Dick Duran when they signed him standing up there saying, "Oh, Jeff Hangartner's our center and Eric Wood's going to be the guard." And I was just like, "Why would you draft a center to play guard? Just let him play guard." The year before that, Duke Preston, Langston Walker, wow, Melvin Fowler, Dockery. Okay, the worst trade was Peters. I think that's probably one of the worst trades is Peters because Peters would have been in Buffalo if they would have paid him, but they didn't want to pay him. But back to the original topic, quarterback. They have to value quarterback. He never played it down with the Bills. Wang never played it down. He was just kind of a window dressing guy, kind of like Jabron Hamden. We have this guy, he just goes out and meets the public, but he never plays. Yeah, just there he was. That was it. There was another player that reminds me of Ed Wang, another guy. And for the life of me, his name's escaping me. Believe it or not, he came after Wang. For Christ's sakes, he was not good. Dick Duran specialist. Probably. He was probably Dick Duran's boy. I know he liked him. Yeah, Rado was already mentioned. I never saw anything wrong with him. He was just a 1 year guy, but I think Dawkins is going to be the left tackle. I've seen him play. It might have been Jasper, but Jasper they put him at nose tackle. They put him at nose tackle, and it never worked out. And they cut him. For the life of me, the guy I'm trying to think about, his name is escaping me right now, but he was just blah. Like every time, he was the equivalent of Jerry Crafts. Jerry Crafts was just this big guy that the Bills had back in the day, and for some reason, Tom Bresnahan, the offensive line coach, loved him and always gave him run. Corbin Lucina was better. Jerry Ostrowski was a hell of a lot better. But for some reason, for 2 years, Jerry Crafts always played. And it was just like finally got to a point where this fucking guy couldn't play. He's too fucking big and he can't move. So, and they cut him. I don't know. I think he went on and played somewhere else for like a minute, but never stuck anywhere. But that was kind of around the year. Ken Hall just retired. I believe Dusty Ziegler took over at center. John Fina was a very underrated left tackle. Glenn Parker was still on the line. He was versatile as shit. Versatile as shit. They just hung out with guys, I believe. That whole time period, the organization was in a bad way. What's up, Ramius? What are you doing, Bubby? But so they just kind of hung out with guys that were happy to be there, happy to have jobs, happy to be in the league. And that's not the way anymore. You're not going to hang out, have jobs, just be happy to be in the league. Otherwise, your ass is going to get cut. It was Dockery, Derek Dockery, number 66. What does he last 2 years with the Bills? He lasted 2 years. I want to say it was Tootin Reyes. That's the guy I was trying to remember. Tootin Reyes was the left tackle before they switched at the bye week and Peters took over at left tackle. Tootin Reyes was terrible. Terrible. It's going to be hard during training camp as there's little to no contact. So you guys can't wear pads. I mean, even in the preseason games, and I know I bring up this game a lot, that game against Cincinnati really did write the script for what the Bills' hell was going to be like on offense. Yeah, that locker room, man. That locker room. Vontez Burfict, Antonio Brown. You have Gruden's personality. You just, holy shit. You got a lot of stuff going on, man. But more so when they get to Vegas, what I meant, when they get to Vegas, like, you think the league sucks the dicks of like the LA, Dallas, New York? The league's going to want to see that team do well, similar to what the NHL wanted. The NHL wanted Vegas to be good. They wanted to prove, look, expansion works. We're not just putting a team out here to suck and throwing a bunch of spare parts on them. You know, you have Incognito. Fuck Caesar's Palace. Imagine him in Aria or fucking the Cosmopolitan or just anywhere that's more ritzy. It's just, that guy's a fucking ticking time bomb. I would want him nowhere near my lot, and it's a shame because Bills fans embraced him. He endeared himself, and unfortunately he just went off the rails. And he was a hell of a player. He played well for the Bills, and he's been his own undoing. But guys, it is an hour and 6 minutes. I appreciate every yeah. He was. Oh, remember they brought in Kendall Simons that year too. They brought in, he was the other veteran guard. They brought in him and Kendall Simons, and Kendall Simons was on the right side. I was upset that they let him go. I thought they would have kept him, but they didn't, which was unfortunate. You know, but Simon's knee was bad. He had a really bad knee. He ended up retiring right after that, I believe, or he might have had a cup of coffee with somebody because his knee was really, really bad. But guys, it's been an hour and 6 minutes. I appreciate you, Corey. Good seeing you back, bro. Trevor, your name is, I think it's Greek, bro. I have a hard time pronouncing it. Damager, Los, Eric, Trevor, all the regulars. You know, I'm easy to find. I'm easy to interact with. Hope you all are having a great one. This heat is terrible. It's terrible. So stay hydrated. Okay, it's like who's saying Turkish. All right, so it's similar but different. Okay, I don't want to mispronounce names. I'm terrible at that shit. Talk to you later, Snarl. You too. You're always in here, so I really, really appreciate you guys. I'm just gonna finish up watching this Yankee game and crash. So I hope you all having a great one. I just can't bring up my quarterback who will be hard. We'll see, man. We'll see. Hopefully everything turns out well. You guys have a great rest of the week. Enjoy your Friday, and talk to you all soon for training camp. Peace.